What's up, children of the sun? This is your spiritual nomad, Montre Bible. Yep, that's my real last name. And I want to talk about the Anunnaki and mythology today. I love talking about the Anunnaki and how they relate to humanity in real life. Are we blood related to them? Are we connected to them? If is do all our beliefs and our belief systems come from this original core family that was on Earth at one point? And I highly believe that. Not only that, I also believe that they go by many names. They've gone by many names throughout history, and that much of the mythology that we have comes from them. So I was reading some old Sumerian stuff, and I was reading, the Book of Enoch, and I was like, wait a minute, some of this stuff is making sense, like it's all connecting. And I've said before, how I made one video about how the Orisha and the Anunnaki mix. Now I want to talk about how Egyptian religion and the Anunnaki mix. Um, and you know, I don't claim to know everything. This is just stuff that I've been reading. If you know something more, feel free to educate me and put it in the comments. I'm just going by the dots that I'm connecting. Okay. So with that being said, um, I also meditated about it and I started getting all these downloads of information, and I was like, wait a minute. Now that's starting to make sense. And what I was getting here, now mind you, just go with me, that there's two factions. And I think we know that. And a lot of people will say, oh, you mean Inky and Lil. No, 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 no. Even further back than that. Even further back than that. I had to write notes because I was like, this is getting pretty intense. Now, I want to talk about the two factions that I believe were ruling the earth and still to this day rule the earth, but they go by different names now. And one of them is the cult of Isis. And the other one would be, I would say, the cult of Set or Baal worshippers. Baal, Baal. And I think they're two opposite sides of two different forms of factions that use magic to control people, to control the world. Go with me on this one, okay? Just take it with a grain of salt. So I was like, okay, how did I get to this whole cult of Isis thing? Let's look it up. Here, I think right here. All right. So the cult of Isis is um Isis has been around for a while, and she's gone by many, many names. Started out in Egypt. Okay. And if you know the story, if you don't, I'll go ahead and tell you. Basically, Osiris gets murdered. He gets chopped up in pieces. Isis goes looking for her husband. She tries to put him back together. Can't quite put them all together. So I think she finds a phallic symbol, or she creates a phallic symbol for him. That was the only missing piece. He was killed by his brother Set. Okay. Isis impregnates herself, and she gives birth to Horus, who then venges his father. We've heard this story before. We see this story a lot, whether it's Hamlet or Lion King or whatever. We see this story repeated over and over and over. Um, and there's a lot to be said about that. Now, the whole Isis, Osiris, Horus story is more like the Jesus iconography that we have now, the Holy Trinity. It's so everything that we believe on, I would say, what we would call the right hand path, the religious right, that's the whole Trinity. That's where they get all of that iconography from. The Virgin Mary, because she didn't, basically she impregnated herself uh, with her dead husband, and who's a god now, and had the son Horus. Put down Horus as being a type of Jesus, but she's a type of Jesus too if you go further back, and as being the one to bring vengeance to his father. And then I said, well, who is Set? So I put a big question mark. It's who is Set? But anyways, let's go backwards a little bit. So let's look at the cult of Isis, and let's see. She was worshipped a lot in the Greco-Roman world. tells how the first god king introduced laws, and his scheming brother Seth, god of chaos. Seth hacked his body in pieces and scattered them across Egypt. Now they say that he was broken up into 13 pieces. That number 13 pops up a lot, especially in the occult. Okay, so the cult of Isis is actually was a religion that carried on after the fact for a very long time. Alexander the Great had a lot to do with that, bringing it into the Greco-Roman society. Now, when getting tongue tied, when Christianity started to take over, they didn't change those beliefs. They just renamed them. So now you have Jesus, Mary, and the Father God. So Osiris, Isis became Mary. Osiris is a type of Dionysus, the god of the underworld. Now, I was thinking, okay, who else went to the underworld? And I remember I've been having readings about that there's this group of people who are trying to rise this spirit up. I don't know if y'all saw my other readings, but I'm like, man, I keep seeing this, but there's another group of people who are trying to prevent this. And this is where I think these are the followers of Set. If we go back to far Egyptian religion, these are the followers of Set. They're the left hand path. Um, and Set, I think, goes by many names too, or Satan. There is a group uh, called the Cult of Set, and they're pretty modern. They came out in the 70s or the 40s, but they're pretty much a denomination of the Church of Satan, but same energy. And I don't want you to think, oh, these guys are good, these guys are bad. Both groups do bad stuff. It's them, them over there, and then it's you, basically. But these are all the same family. Okay. So Isis is better known as Ishtar, who's better known as Aphrodite, Venus. Uh, she was from one family. She married into Osiris's family. Okay. And I put Horus is a type of no, wait. Osiris is a type of Dumuzi because the story of Inanna, the descent of Inanna. Let me see if I could find that. She's a very powerful goddess. She married Dumuzi. So Dumuzi and Osiris would be similar energies because Dumuzi gets killed, Osiris gets killed. Now, in the story of Dumuzi, it's kind of confusing of who actually kills Dumuzi. All right. In some myths, um, Ishtar Inanna, she goes to war because she's a warrior goddess, of course, and she gets killed, and she tries to return to the earth, and she finds out that her husband has forgotten about her, and because of that, she decides to have him replace her. Because she figures out she's a goddess of magic, so she figures out that hey, if I can get my husband to come down to hell in the underworld, he can replace me. Now, in another story, Dumuzi, he is murdered by demons. One of them called Belial, which sounds a lot close to Baal, but Belial is a demon as well, which is a goddess demon, and she supposedly was responsible for that. Now, whether Inanna did it herself or whether she got someone to do it for her, which sounds pretty suspect, where there's a jealousy kind of thing. You marry somebody, you get jealous of them, and you have somebody take them out, and then you mourn, then you mourn their death, right? Um, both situations are possible, especially what happens to a woman scorned, right? So, but she had a second. She has second thoughts about after that, after Dumuzi's in hell or the underworld, and she goes down there to go get him. And this is where we get the whole Ishtar Easter story of her taking the descent to hell to break her lover free, and then she comes back up. And this is where we get the stories of spring and winter. When she's gone, she's descent to hell, and she comes back. She is spring again because she brings the life. Okay, so this is where we get Easter and all that other stuff and what they were actually worshiping back then. Hope I'm making any sense. But let's get back to the core of it. Two groups of people. The cult of Isis, Ishtar, her her lover, and her child that revenges the father. So we got that Trinity, the Trinity. Okay. And then the other half is the cult of Set, who very well may be a goddess. Let me see if I can find something on Belial. Uh, Let me share my screen again. I don't know if you guys can see that. Who is Belial? Belial is a term occurring in the Old Testament, which later became personified as the devil in Christian texts in the New Testament. Okay, Belial. All right. Used to characterize the wicked or worthless. Etymology of the word is lacking worth. And I think this is not what I was reading. The sons of Belial. Here, that's not what I was looking at. Sorry, guys. Let me put Belial and wait, how do you spell Demuzi? Demuzi. Demuzi. All right. Oh, Belili. I had it wrong. Sorry about that. Belili. Belili was a Mesopotamian goddess. This name refers both to the sister of Dumuzi, known for some of the texts pertaining to his death, and to a primordial deity paired with Alala and is enlisted in enumerations of ancestors of Anu. So she's supposed to be a sister of Dumuzi who killed him, which sounds a lot like Set and Osiris, except Set is a brother. But back then, as the patriarchy started taking over, a lot of goddesses started being seen as male. But Belili could very well be what I was thinking, androgynous. And what would they call that now? Non-binary. I think Belili was female, uh, being putting herself out there not only as a goddess but also masculine. But she supposedly had a role in actually murdering Dumuzi. So I would say that her this goddess worship of Belili is the cult of Set. And I'm just putting dots together. And I'm like, well, who is she? And all we get is like she's the sister of Dumuzi. They appeared in other texts. Other deities considered to be Dumuzi's relatives were Gestiana. Let me see. She was worshipped alongside Dumuzi. And see, this could be easily an alter ego of Inanna, you know? Because I mean, yeah, it's a sister, but a lot of times back then, they would call husbands and wives brothers and sisters. Let's see, dealing with the death. Let's see. Dumuzi wants to hide in her house while being chased by demons. Billy agrees to offer him water, but later she has to leave, which lets the pursuers enter the house and take Dumuzi to the underworld. She's described as an old woman. Gestiana appears in the same myth in a different role. So he was being chased by demons. So that sounds like a spell. Bilili listens to the llamas heard when Dumuzi dies and has to enter the underworld. The terms used to describe this is ikulu, an articulate cry expressing suffering or high intensity. Now, I heard in one story, it was Inanna who went to her to get the demons to go round him up. So I'm trying to put all the all the stories together and make them make sense in my head. That's why I'm just talking it out. So Dumuzi was married. Dumuzi or Osiris was married to Inanna or Isis. Something or another happened, and either Inanna was killed first because she was at war, or Dumuzi got killed by demons. Either way, both of them got killed and both of them got resurrected. At one point, there's a story of jealousy because I think that Inanna, Isis, got killed first. Because usually that is something that I can see happening. And that she was in the underworld and that she created a spell. Maybe this is her alter ego that she decided, okay, in order to get out, I have to become this thing. And maybe it just changed her. She went to hell and it changed her. We can all attest when we break up with someone, it changes us a little bit. We do some evil stuff. And I think she changed a little bit and she sent some demons to go after him. And them demons pulled him into hell with her. It's kind of like, drag me to hell. That's what I'm getting. This is what this story is giving me. And y'all can disagree if you want. But this is what I'm feeling that she could live her life halfway out in the above world if she could get him down there. It's she made a pact with the devil to get some demons to pull him down, and she was able to live above for a short time until he was pulled down or until he resurrected again, and then she went back. And there's this back and forth energy of both of them battling each other, and I think these cults. Let's talk about the cults. These two factions. That's just with Inanna and Dumuzi. But the cult of Set, which would be Belili, which I think is either a sister of Inanna or a whole totally separate entity. Like, now go with me on this one. What if Belili is actually the goddess Lilith? Belili, Lilith, kind of sound the same. We forgot about Lilith, right? Totally forgot about Lilith. She was supposed to be at the beginning. She who else would have a very strong feminine masculine energy and still be around? What is the myth about Lilith? Lilith was created at the same time of Adam. They're saying that during that time people were androgynous. Male and female, he created them. Okay? That people, both Adam and Lilith, had both genitalia. And it was who's gonna, submit to the other. And Lilith was like, nah, I ain't submitting to Adam. Adam's smaller than me. They say, Lilith may be a very masculine, feminine conglomerate of creation. So Lilith decided to become um, a god or a goddess. And but the Hebrew myth around Lilith is that she hates mankind because uh, when they rebooted man, they decided to split up the genitalia, the sex. So now men had penises and females had just vaginas, one or the other, right? And then we get Eve, the first prototype for women, and then there's this jealousy between Lilith and Eve. So you have different types of women, or whatever Lilith is. But Lilith couldn't create on her own. So Lilith would need the seed of men, which we would get the succubus stories, and she would have her own demons and children. So she would still use men, but she would never like be married to one or whatever. She would just have that baby mama kind of thing, the baby mama stories. Whereas Eve was supposed to be the wife. So you still get these stories. I mean, for centuries we've had these same little soap operas going on and on and on. So this is my theory, just a theory, that Lilith, the underworld, she's Beliali, she's Set, she's the Lucifer, let's say. And I've said before that I said Lucifer is female. Everything that we see about Lucifer sounds very beautiful, very kind of feminine but masculine at the same time. The Statue of Liberty, I made a video about the Statue of Liberty. I said this is a very masculine looking lady, and she's supposed to be the light bearer. I think she is Lucifer. She's Set. She's Beliali, and she had a hand in taking Dumuzi out, who is Osiris, and bringing him into the underworld and lifting up Isis and Ishtar. But Isis and Ishtar, Venus, she still loves him. She still has love for him. So even with that, because sometimes you're angry and then you get over it. She tries to resurrect him back up. So they have this in and out relationship, a very complicated, dramatic soap opera. So you have these two cults that I think, once again, getting back to what I was saying at the beginning, that basically we have a very large group of occultic people secretly still worshiping these beings or this history because they're old gods. And they go by other names, except for the cult of Baal. I think Baal worship, Set worship, Satanism still exists in many different forms. And I truly believe that's the left hand path of darkness and sexuality, just doing whatever. Very much her kind of idea because she's Lilith. She's like she doesn't care. The feminism movement, all of that. Whereas the right hand path of magic, and it's all magic, is more the organized religion, Catholicism, um, Judaism, where they all have a father that they worship that is going to return, or a savior that's going to return, Horus, the sun god, um, where Inanna is the twin sister, Artemis is the twin sister of the sun god. She's Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo, right? These stories go back and forth where she finds balance in her masculine counterpart, but she still rules on this back and forth kind of nature. The sun and the moon. The sun and the moon only come together during eclipses, but most of the time, the divine feminine, the moon, the divine masculine, the sun, usually keep separate. And that's his love relationship between the sun and the moon. They pretty much rule different parts of the day, and they only come together during certain times. Mind you, we have an eclipse in April during Easter season when the sun and the moon come together once again. The marriage of Isis and her husband, the sun. Anyways, I had all of that on my mind. And I'm sorry to like intellectually dump on you guys like that, but I'm like, "Ugh, I can't get this out of my mind. Like, why is this story keep repeating itself in my head?" So I wanted to share that with you. So in modern times, it would just be, Christianity against the devil, if we were to keep it simple. But I think it's way deeper than that. I think it goes all the way back to Egyptian religion. I think it goes all the way back to Sumerian religion and female empowerment, whether it's being a god or a goddess all by yourself, or saying it's a difference between here's the left hand path. I am a god, you know. The right hand path is we are gods. Because Inanna and Dumuzi, Isis and Horus, or Isis and Osiris, because Horus is supposed to be the rebirth of Osiris, it's saying that the masculine and the feminine need each other. But there's still this love-hate relationship. But there's this trinity of unity and bringing things together. I'm not saying which path you need to focus on or not, because there is truth in the left-hand path and there's truth in the right-hand path as well. It's also very confusing because I think it comes from a lot of drama. And I'm saying, well, what's the middle path? There's got to be a middle path because it all comes down to how we decide or where we decide to put our energy at, right? And there were some other things I wanted to say, but I'm not going to say it. But we are related to these quote unquote beings. I don't know if they're quite gods. Maybe they lived a long time. Maybe they built society. Maybe they built civilization and created the religious rules that we have now or the lack of. But we're still being influenced by them secretly. And that's what I was telling you guys about the Super Bowl. I was like, everyone's wearing black. What is going on? And there are certain symbolisms that they will do to tell you which side they're on. I'm not going to tell you which, but if you know their symbols, you know who they are. Horus, Osiris, and all them, they do that little eye symbol stuff. Um, but the cult of Baal, those are child sacrificers. They all do bad stuff with children though, because if I say that the right hand path is a Catholic Church, we know what they've been doing, unless they've been uh, taken over. But they do a lot of Egyptian symbolism as well. But a lot of stuff they've lied to people to keep them controlled, to keep people in a certain mindset, and that's you. You're the people. What people need to realize, and I'll go ahead and say this, is like we are blood related to these beings, and they don't want you to know that. Some of them already know who they are. That's why you have these ruling families and these powers that want to be. They already know who they're related to. The British family already knows they got some connection to the Egyptian families. That's why they're always like, bragging about that stuff. But you do too. And that comes from a bloodline that they don't want to tell you about. And this is where we get a lot of RH negative people too, amongst the common folk. Like, where do all these RH negative people come from? Why are we amongst the common people? But you have a lot of wannabes, powers that want to be that are all RH negative. All the presidents have negative blood. But they don't want you to know the power in that. And I think that's why they've been doing all these DNA tests. And hey, everybody get a DNA test. Hey, everybody freeze your sperm. Hey, everybody check your family trees and stuff. Put your names on the family trees. And I was a sucker. I did it. But they're selling data. And I think this is a way of them trying to track down who are the children of this bloodline. because when they're doing their spells and stuff, you become immune to it. And that's what they don't want you to know. And that you can actually change or influence the spells that they are putting on people. Because that's what they're doing. They're doing old magic. And when they're doing stuff like the Super Bowl and stuff, they're doing rituals and spells on folks. All right. I feel like I've said everything I wanted to say. I feel free now. All right. I know that was a lot, but I had to get it out of my head. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have a comment, please let me know. And remember to make your reality happen because if you don't do it, then who will?